Hi, welcome everybody. It's day 5. It's Friday the 13th, and we've got the whole fleet bearing down on Storm Theta. So, what could possibly go wrong? I've got Mike sat in the green room, so we're going to bring him in, and then we'll get the show on the road. So, let's say hi to Mike. How you doing?
Very good, thank you. Hello,
Hey,
everyone.
that's we've got some sound, which is great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, incredible last 24 hours. I mean, if we start from the moment when Alex created some separation between the fleet and the other foilers, and then his strategy going into Theta, what did you make of it all?
Well, it's pretty bold. I mean, I think as we discussed last time, the principal strategy is to try and get as near to the center as you can, if in an optimal world. The difference is here is they're obviously trying to complete the Vendée Globe and they don't want to break their boat. So to go so close to the center as Alex has put him at some risk. But I guess he's weighing up the pros and cons of getting an early substantial lead
Yeah,
and just saying, well, maybe this is his chance to make a break and then slow down later.
yeah, yeah. Well, let's flick to the tracker and just watch it through from the moment where he created that separation, and then as we get close to Storm Theta, we can see what his latest tactics are. But let's just run. So we'll run through the tracker here. This is the moment where he he jibed away and quite sensibly. I mean, he's put two little steps down, created a nice gap. He's in better pressure as they're going round this little low pressure. Um, why do you think the other two boats sort of carried on at that point?
Well, I'm guessing that their view was much more conservative, trying to keep their boats not, unbroken and so on. So they were trying to stay out of the worst of it. And all these boats are very quick. So when they get more moderate conditions and are able to put the foot down without risking anything, that's where they think they're going to gain their miles. So I think Alex was just taking advantage of that little system to get a little boost ahead, and it certainly worked nicely for him.
Yeah, it certainly
Anyone
did.
that
We've got to.
because with the separation, he's now carrying that into theta, and as a result, he'll get the quickest shift. He'll have the best pressure. But yes, he is more exposed to the worst of the conditions.
So we've got to mention Jean Le Cam. What a remarkable performance in this race so far. I mean, there he is, right on the hop behind Alex. And how's he managed to stay so competitive? I mean, he's picked a really nice line all the way through this race, but he's a good sailor. Yeah?
He's a very good sailor, and the classical Daggerable configuration has allowed him to sail a shorter route. So he sailed less miles to get to the same point. And in some of these conditions, he's equally fast. He's never far off the pace. The boat he's on is not a slow boat by any stretch of the imagination. It's a very quick boat, and he's a very good sailor, very canny sailor.
Yeah, it's really really interesting. So Apiva and I was trying to think who that one.
Linked in,
That
linked
was
out.
PRB. PRB. They both sort of jibed out, taking perhaps a bit more conservative course coming in here. But this was right up until the 2 o'clock sked, and I think Alex sort of waited for the sked to go through, and then did step across and put a little jibe in. But he's certainly pretty close to the centre of that low, isn't he?
He is, but I mean, on the switch side, you're going downwind, and the seas will be more organised with theta than they were, for instance, coming through the front at the beginning of the race. So, and if the seas are more organised, then the reality is going downwind. He's in a very quick boat, so the amount of load on stuff in terms of the rig will be quite light, but it's really just the wave pattern that's going to and trying to prevent himself from premature foiling. He'll be having to sort of moderate his speed with his sail plan to make sure he doesn't overspeed and have a big crash.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, let's just move on and have a look at the routing for the next 24 hours. So, what are we seeing here? It looks like, if I just stop the routing there, that it fancies coming out of Theta and getting a little even more westing in. And that's largely because there seems to be a little bit more pressure in the western portion of the Atlantic. And then a jibe and your sort of conventional trade routes. Do you think that's going to cause some problems later on when picking a Doldrums crossing point?
Well, traditionally they'd cross it between sort of 26 to 29 west. So that routing is taking them pretty much, by the looks of it, I can't see the numbers, but by the looks of it, it's taking them pretty much to that point.
Yeah.
The challenge is after you exit the Doldrums, you've then got potentially an upwind stretch where you're pointing north of Recife initially. And as you progress further and further south, slowly you get lifted. Now you can get very close to Recife. I think we discussed this last time, and the foilers, particularly the ones that are less efficient upwind, won't be wanting to get caught, having to put a very bad tack away from the South American coast. So I think to some extent they want to be as east as they can to get good angle. But not so far east that they're in no pressure at all. And I think the Doldrums are looking pretty active.
I've got a nice satellite picture here, which I picked up this afternoon. So this, you can see, really how active Theta is at the up here, and then where it was showing this sort of bit of pressure, slightly stronger pressure in the west. Seems to be where a bit of cloud is this point. But what's your take on this down here? I mean, there's a couple of quite powerful little cells.
And that's what you're going to be looking for. You're going to be looking for those. I mean, that's just cloud cover, but it's going to give you an indication of where the pressure lays. There'll be little pathways through the Doldrums at that point, and it will be a case of trying to pick a window to get yourself through the Doldrums without stopping. So I think you can, from that you can see it's pretty clear skies. Once you're clear of Theta and heading down towards Cape Verde, it's pretty clear skies. So very difficult from that to tell what's going on. But I think the analysis that there is a little more pressure always on the right-hand side of the fleet would seem to be right. You can see that on the isobars. They're just a little narrower the further west you are. So right hand side would seem to pay. I just would be nervous from just with my VR boat. I'm just a little nervous of ending up so far over that you are struggling to get round the corner at Recife.
I must admit, I mean, I was looking at my exit out of Theta, and I quite like just going straight south, and just allowing the breeze to come forward as we come out of it. But obviously, looking at the forecast ahead, you can see quite clearly there's a nice green yellow patch there coming out of Theta to the right, and definitely more pressure to the to the western portion of the Atlantic. If we look at this area, so maybe
that's
it's
a long
right.
way. I mean, that's a long way to the west, and if you look to the south, you can't even see the corner of South America on that chart. So if you're over in that zone, you potentially, you can see the corners.
Out here,
you're starting to get west of the corner.
Yeah, that's right.
And I struggle to know how you make it around that. If you don't make that corner, it's a really bad deal. So I think keeping some easting in the bag is not completely stupid at this point, so you don't lose out dramatically.
This is pretty
wide. See, what's interesting about that chart is that you can see sort of a wedge shape where it's potentially narrower the doldrums are narrower to the west, but you can also see the sort of vacuum behind Theta, which just very interesting looking.
Yeah, it is. And the doldrums seem to be a long way north. I mean, look, this is Cape Verde's here.
Yeah.
So, we've got a doldrums that is very far north. So actually, you're right. If they end up too far west, they could be in real trouble here, for a long period.
I mean, the only thing about it being so far north, and this is not necessarily good news for a fast doldrums passage, is that the ITCZ, the intertropical convergence zone, tends to move to the north and to the south in a sort of cyclical way. And the fact that it's so far north means it's probably only got one direction to go, and that's south.
And that's back south.
And then the problem with that is, as you approach it, it's moving away from you and with you. So your chances of getting really caught are pretty bad.
Yeah, that's not good. I'm just going to run the forecast through and just see if we can see any changes. So that was today, but if we go forward, let's keep going actually into the week. I mean, we might even see the doldrums shifting. It looks, if anything, like it's becoming less active.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that is quite good. That's quite positive. But it's still, because the convergence is so far north, it still worries me being too far west, because you can see the potential problem you're going to have getting around the corner.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that, I don't think I've ever seen trade winds from the South Atlantic blowing all the way up past almost the Amazon entrance there.
Yeah, likewise. I remember you used to track these. Used to track the north-south position, but wow, that is a heck of a long way north. Yeah,
it is, isn't it? I mean, that's just bring up my cursor again. Here's the line here, and we've got, I mean, almost all of this distance here of south trades. South Atlantic.
And you're covering you're covering nearly 1,000 miles there. So, with your arrow. So, it's maybe not 500, maybe not 1,000, but certainly 700 or something like that. It's a lot of miles. So it's a lot of miles if you're on the wind and you're in a foiler. So Jean Le Cam could come back to the fore if he can get down there in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, that's I guess they'll be already, as soon as they get out of this bad weather they're in, they'll be thinking about where to line up. But maybe it's not so good to get sort of pushed over to the west too far. That's been really fascinating, Mike. I think we're obviously into the weekend. Alex is in pole position, and provided he keeps everything together, he could come out of this with maybe a 100-mile lead, which he was first to the equator last time round, and those trade wind conditions look very optimum for the foilers, at least initially, but the doldrums could yet change it all around again. Great as always, Mike, to catch up. I thought you'd be thinking of Jeremy, so let's hope he gets back into the race track, and it'd be great to see him back out there. We're going to have a little break over the weekend, but we'll hopefully catch up next week.
See you, everyone.